In this video, I want to talk with you about the 6 purposes that the NASW Code of Ethics serves for social workers and the profession. First, the code identifies the core values on which the social work mission is based. Why we're social workers and what we're doing. The values are actually going to be discussed in more detail during the next video, but one of the main focuses of the code is to discuss these core values and how they relate to social work practice. The second purpose of the Code of Ethics is it summarizes very broad ethical principles that reflect the core values. When I talk with you a little bit more during the next video about these principles, you're going to see how broad they really are. And one of the things that the code does nicely as you read through the different sections is it really breaks those down and tries to provide social workers with more of a framework for practice based on the ethical situations and dilemmas that they may encounter. The third purpose is it's designed to help social workers identify relevant considerations when professional obligations conflict and when dilemmas arise. As I shared with you earlier, we're going to be discussing ethical dilemmas at length in the class, and the test that we're going to have does have to do with an ethical dilemma that you and your group will be discussing and kind of solving during the class time. The code is really helpful in identifying these considerations when ethical dilemmas happen, and so you guys are going to want to be aware of the code also so that you can work through the ethical dilemma on the exam. It's going to help you in being able to say why your answer about the dilemma is most appropriate and gives you an insight and a framework to work from. The fourth purpose for the Code of Ethics is to provide ethical standards to which the general public can hold the social work profession accountable. When clients work with social workers, they're able to understand the ethical standards that we adhere to, so they can know if a social worker isn't adhering to these, that there's an area of concern, and that sometimes even the board is consulted, especially as I talked with you about in another video with the sexual contact. If a client is aware that that's inappropriate and a social worker isn't following the Code of Ethics, then the proper folks need to be notified and the proper action needs to be taken. So that's another thing that this Code of Ethics does, is outline how we can be accountable as a social work profession. The fifth purpose of the Code of Ethics is to socialize new practitioners to the mission, values, code of ethical principles, and ethical standards of social work. So it gives you, as new practitioners, an understanding and a summary of what the profession expects of you, what the mission of social work is, the values under which we practice, and how to work through these ethical dilemmas that will occur within your practice within the community. The final purpose that the code serves is to discuss the standards that social work profession can itself use to assess whether social workers have engaged in an ethical conflict. So when I talked a few minutes ago about the board, one of the things that they may use the Code of Ethics for is to look to see if somebody has practiced in a way that was unethical, and being able to use these standards as a tool to determine when conduct has occurred that is not surrounding the mission and values of the social work profession as a whole. So these are some of the reasons that the code exists and the purposes of the code at this time. Again, these things are ever evolving as the profession evolves, but these are the things that we feel, that social work feels is true as far as why this code currently is important.